Welcome to the Brand Doctor Podcast, strategies that help entrepreneurs build reputable and profitable brands. Here's your host, Henry Kaminski Jr.
How to choose the right mentor. That is today's topic of discussion. So my today's guest is the editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur Magazine, the host of the popular podcast Problem Solvers, and also he hosts another podcast called the Pessimist Archive. Without further ado, I want to introduce my man, Jason Feifer, to the show. What's going on, man?
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Dude, thank you so much for the amount of content and value that you put out on your podcast. Really enjoying both of them. And they are on my top 10 of podcasts.
I appreciate that.
So I want to dive in because I know you're very short of time, and I just want to dive in and just give these folks great value today. I get a lot of questions about how to pick the right mentor. And I know Entrepreneur has this great program that you guys recently launched, and I want to shed light on it because it sounds fantastic.
Yeah. So it's so funny. Well, we'll get to it. The program, which is called Ask an Expert, and but we started using the word mentor a lot in the advertising of it, and actually I think that was a mistake, and I'm glad that we largely scrubbed it. Occasionally the word mentor still shows up, but I think that's an error. We haven't updated it, but we'll get into that. I think that mentor is a loaded word, and a lot of people don't understand exactly what it means, how to find a mentor, how to utilize the concept of mentorship. And the introduction for me personally into this world was when I became editor-in-chief and I started speaking at conferences and whatever the case was. And then people would come up to me afterwards and, some had their questions about this or that. And then inevitably, almost every single event, one or two people would come up to me and say, "Can you be my mentor?" And I don't know them, right? I just met them. I don't know if I can be useful to them. And here it is. Can you be my mentor? And at first I just didn't know how to answer that. And I had to really think through it. But I mean, the gut reaction answer, of course, is no, I can't because I don't know you and I'm not invested in you. And I don't think that I have the time for whatever it is that you think me being your mentor means. And I eventually came to realize that, the problem here is that most people, when they think of mentor, they think of it like a specific person's job. Like there is a role, a mentor, and it's a role that somebody fills in your life, and they are this older, wiser person who fills you with wisdom. And that's not what most people have access to. You can't go casting around for that the way that you could hire someone for an actual job. You have to utilize the people that you have access to in the way in which they can be most valuable to you within the confines of their own time constraints and interest, frankly. And that means that you have to stop looking for someone who fills that role entirely. And I think start looking for lots of people who, in their aggregate, serve as the mentorship that you need.
Yeah, I love that approach. I have to tell you, I'm a firm believer that everybody is looking for that silver bullet or that guy or that gal to really help them solve all their problems.
Yeah.
But that person doesn't exist.
Almost never. It's possible that person exists for some people. But if you don't have that person, if that relationship did not organically develop, then you can't go and force it.
No.
You can be on the lookout for it. You can develop a relationship with people over the long term, but you can't just go casting for it. No. So stop chasing that. That's a dead end. You're wasting your time, and you're in fact making potentially burgeoning and valuable relationships awkward by inserting this grand expectation of mentorship into it.
Okay, so now let's talk about the word expert here, because there's a lot of experts.
Yeah.
Jason, every time I go on Instagram, somebody's popping up in my feed. I'm the next expert. I'm the next Facebook. So
right. Expert doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. Yeah. Although before we move into expert, let me just complete the thought, which is that listen, so what you like what you should do is think about, we just had somebody who was a Dory Clark who had a nice phrase for it, which was the mentor board of directors or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but like the way that I think about it is like find micro mentors, find small ways in which people in your life can fulfill something that you need. I think about the world of people that I have access to, friends who I've come up with who have been really successful, people that I've worked for, people people who have been junior to me but are very, very smart, people who I've just met along the way. And these people all in some way or another serve as mentors, but I don't call them mentors, and they would never think that I'm thinking of them as mentors. Sometimes the best people, the greatest mentors that you will have, will never think of themselves as mentors. It's not actually the kind of relationship that you have. Instead, why don't you just think about this? Who do I have access to? Or who could I continue to develop relationships with that once or twice a year I can catch up with them and ask them some questions, or I can observe them, or I can learn from them in a really casual but valuable way. Who can I trade some value with because I have something that they like and they have something that I like? Who is invested in me and I can be invested in them? And these people are your mentors, but you don't formalize it. You don't call them your mentors. Instead, what you do is you just learn from them. You identify the things that they're doing really well that you would like to learn from. And there's a person for this part of your career and a person for that part of your career, and so on and so forth. And that is your collection of mentor non-mentors. And that is how to build a really lasting, sustainable, and valuable team who can help you grow.
Beautifully said. Now, let's get into experts.
Yeah.
Okay? It's very hard to sift through the nonsense that's going out there right now. And they look really shiny and really pretty out there on social media. And then when you hire them, they come out to be not so polished, not so equipped with the skill set that you thought they had. And now you're left disappointed. So how can we help our audience sift through that and find a true expert?
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, everybody's an expert. Everybody will call themselves an expert. You're absolutely right. I mean, can you dig into like a use case here? Like, what are we talking about? Like hiring someone, searching?
Yeah. So let's go in. Let's dive into the digital marketing space or the online marketing space, because they're full of them.
Yeah.
So you go in and you see this guy running Facebook ads, throwing Russell Brunson's books in the garbage, saying, "Oh, this book didn't tell me anything. You should listen to me because I've built a $15 million company." And then you dig a little deeper and the guy lives in his parents' basement.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know now, don't get me wrong, I don't know if this guy's living in his parents' basement, but they throw these big numbers out there. Oh, I run a $10 million business, but it cost me $9.999 million to run it. Are you really an expert?
No. Yeah, no, that's okay. I got it. Yeah, you're right. Listen, I mean, here's a good rule of thumb that I've found. The greatest people don't sell themselves. So if you're coming across people who are like hard selling you, who are telling you like how much money they make, like, which is the most obnoxious and boring thing in the world. Like, cool, dude, you make that much money? You probably don't. If they're selling you, if they have really slick videos, if they are very clearly good at selling you on them, it's probably the only thing that they're good at selling. Because the people who are genuinely good don't need to spend time like hawking themselves like that, right? I mean, I have a good friends, Adam and Jordan Bornstein, who have a company called Pen Name Consulting. And I know Adam from way back when. We were both editors at Men's Health together. And he went off and like just learned business, became a real genius at it, and built this company with his brother. And the thing that they love, and this is the reason I bring this up, the thing that they love is that nobody's ever heard of them. Like nobody's ever heard of Pen Name Consulting at all. And they love that. Like they think that that's great, right? And they're working with huge brands from like Microsoft, Tim Ferriss, Dollar Shave Club. Nobody's ever heard of them. They're not hawking themselves. You'll never find them like making a sales pitch. In fact, they turn down most of the business that comes their way because they're making sure that they will only work with people who they think that they align with so well that they can bring genuine value to. And you'll see that a lot too, where the really true experts will only say yes to things that they are confident they are the exact right match for. And they'll say no to everything else. You know why? Because they have enough business, and because they don't want to ruin their reputation by just like taking on things just for the money. And so I think that if you're looking for someone to trust, the very first thing that I would do is find people whose word is spread not from their own mouths. Like, who is working with people and then their clients are the ones preaching about them, not them. And that you can go and find clients who worked with them, who they didn't send you to, so you can back channel it. And those people are still very happy to talk about this expert. Those are the people that you want to work with. If somebody is out there hawking, if somebody's trying to sell you, I would move along, because that's a person who needs work and whose primary talent is selling themselves, not helping you. Beautifully said.
Beautifully said. So let's talk about Hire an Expert program. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So
it's called Ask an Expert, and it's, you know, it's real simple. I mean, it's basically a one-on-one consulting tool, and where it came from. So we call it Ask an Expert. You can get it at entrepreneur.com/expert. And, to be honest, what you'll see there right now is early stages of a product. I mean, we have maybe 12 experts on there so far, who do a range of things, and there's a range of prices. I am one of them. So you can book me for 30 or 60 minutes. And the idea here is that we just know, like, you know, listen, we're a traditional media company, which is to say, or rather a legacy media company. Traditional is not the right word, but we're a legacy media company. We've been around for 40 years. And most of that time, we did what media does, which is that we like talk to people. We just created things and we mass blasted them. We talk to people. We make a magazine. You send it to, in this case now 500,000 people or whatever. And that's that. And that's just not the expectation that people have right now. People want direct conversation. They don't want to go searching around for like a piece of content that's going to be helpful to them. They just want to talk to somebody and say, listen, this is my specific problem. Can you help me think through this? And most people don't have access to someone who will just carve out 30 or 60 minutes of their time to just talk, right? I mean, yeah, you can go hire somebody online for like a month and it costs you $10,000. But like, how about if you just need a conversation? Just one conversation. What is that? Or multiple conversations, but at your own time frame. Where do you do that? And so we thought, well, let's build something where you can do that, where you can come, you book some time, and so it's been great, honestly. So, for example, I am largely booked for communications questions, personal branding questions, storytelling, writing, stuff like that. And so people book me for 30 or 60 minutes. And I got to say, it's the best part of my day, because it is so much more satisfying to have a conversation with one person and work through their challenge and see the change right there in front of you than it is to write something and know that it's being read by a million people, but you can't see any of them. Yeah. And like that I've done that for long enough in my career now, written for enough publications and known that there were lots of people reading something of mine, but I didn't see any of them. I didn't interact with them. That now actually being just in front of an individual is a lot more satisfying. And the thing that I'm finding, I got to say, and this is I think the real value of getting in front of an expert. The thing that I'm finding is that oftentimes when people reach out, they're not asking the right question of themselves. So sometimes they'll have an idea of the thing that they want to get to, and they'll have a question, but then I'll step back and be like, well, why are you asking that? Or why are you thinking about that? Right? Like, why, you've come to me because you want to build a personal brand. Okay, but what is your actual goal? And what I find is that it's not that they wanted to build a personal brand. It's like they wanted to increase sales and somebody told them that's the way to do it. And it's like, you know what? Maybe that's not what you need. Maybe what you need to do is think through your like brand story better. And so having those kinds of conversations with people who can move you off of where you think you need to go and instead get to the core of what it is that you need so that you can understand how to reach that is really, really valuable. And we I think offer a great service to do that, but you can find that in many other ways too. You just need to get in front of somebody who understands the core of what you're trying to do well enough that they can get you on the right path.
Yeah. And how do you vet these folks that are on the program right now? as experts?
Yeah, it's fine. So right now we have largely just stayed within our own network of people who are part of Entrepreneur in some way or another, whether it be that we are partners with them in some capacity, or like Terry Rice who is a digital marketing expert, is like overseeing programming in our Entrepreneur Insider program. And so it's largely that, but we will be scaling it up. The idea is to scale it up to the point where we have tons of experts, and then it's easier to search by category or the thing that you need, and we kind of create some sort of pairing mechanism. And at that point, we're going to need to start vetting. And so we've been talking through a lot of different ways to do that. I like to see how people think and how they interact. Watch people think on their feet. We were thinking that maybe there's a way in which maybe the people who want to become experts first do some sort of live session with our Entrepreneur Insider members, and then they have an interview with me, and maybe there's something else. I probably would also want to see some experience in speaking, because this is ultimately a medium in which you need to be an engaging conversationalist. We're figuring it out, but to me, it's not all that different from hiring someone for a job, which is to say, I'm not just interested in their skill sets. I'm really interested in how they think, and I want to see them think on their feet. The most when I've been a job candidate, the most impressive person who ever interviewed me was Adam Moss, who until recently was the editor-in-chief of New York Magazine. Who was famous for just really pushing the limits of creativity, and that guy just made me come up with stories and entire sections of a magazine, just like off the top of my head, in his office, and it was extremely intimidating. But it was easily the most impressive interview I've ever been a part of. He really made me think, and he saw how I thought, and that I ever since that experience, that happened when I was much younger. I've tried to model my own interviewing off of that. Mm-hmm. If you want to know how somebody thinks, you have to push them to think right in front of you.
Yeah, I think that's powerful, and I think people will appreciate you in the long run when you challenge them. I always tell my clients that most of them are consultants or speakers or folks that are coaches that really want to help a bigger mass, right? And I think sometimes they get a little imposter syndrome falls into play here sometimes, sure. Right? And they're afraid to challenge, maybe because they got paid so much money. I'll just take the orders. And it's like, no, they're looking for that challenge. They're looking for you to pull them out of their comfort zone. Otherwise, they could have done it themselves.
Right.
And they're not going to see the value. So as we get into, I want to turn gears here and start to wrap up. Today's prescription from the doc is 3 things that I really want you to pull from today's conversation. One is to look for the specialist, not the generalist, when it comes to finding the right expert, mentor, whatever you want to call it. I'm starting to, now that I had this conversation with you, Jason, I'm starting to like the word expert again, right? I put it away.
There are genuine experts out there, right?
There are.
It's not a regulated word. Anybody can call themselves an expert, but there are genuine experts.
Well, so which brings me to the next point. Look for the experts that aren't selling themselves. They're representing their skill set. They're representing their expertise. I always say, show, don't tell. I grew up in a very urban neighborhood down in South Jersey, and the joke on the playground, anytime somebody was going to come to us with BS, it was show and prove. If you couldn't show and prove, we didn't believe you, and you were full of you know what. Yeah. And so I want you. So if you guys are aspiring to be an expert, or you're looking to hire an expert, pay attention to the types of content and the way they're positioning themselves online or offline, and see if they are a man of their words or a woman of their words, and look for their actions. Don't listen to what they're saying, right? Last but not least, I think you need to start asking the right questions. Very, very important here to start asking the right questions. If you don't ask the right questions, you're going to get the wrong answer. Listen, when I was building my graphic design business 10 years ago, I never asked the right questions. And when I went into a project and I would present it for the first time, they were like, well, Henry, this is not what we expected. This is not what we talked about. Why? Because I didn't ask the freaking right questions.
Yeah.
So I really want you to start thinking, if you want to create a $1 million brand, if you want to create a reputation that precedes itself, ask yourself why first. And that's going to uncover a lot of things that you may or may not be expecting. And it's great to have an expert to help you sort of sift through this thinking, because it's really easy to get in our heads, isn't it? So those are my 3 tips, takeaways from today's Doc's Prescription. I want to get into the questions from the community today. And so I'm going to ask Jason this question, and then I'll give it my best and answer it as well. So today's question is, if you can go back and fix one mistake in your entrepreneurial career, what would it be?
Yeah, it's funny because I often attribute my growth as to my mistakes. I thought that the mistakes are what I learned from, and then the lesson from the learning is what really propelled me forward. And so, I in a way, I'm a little afraid to wipe away a mistake. I think that it would have been bad, but so I will just I guess I will just offer this one thing that I totally wish that I've been doing forever, which is collecting. I, as a guy who's been a magazine editor for a long time now, I don't know. I guess I got I was a newspaper reporter starting in 2002, and then I got my first magazine job in 2006. So it's been a long time. Mm-hmm. I've met a lot of people, a lot of really, really impressive people. And I've also reached a lot of people. I've reached a lot of readers and so on. And it wasn't until only a few years ago that I said, wait a second. I should not be letting all of this stuff slip through my fingers. I should be capturing as many email addresses as possible, right? I should be signing people up for a newsletter. When I meet impressive people and we have a good conversation, I should throw them in a spreadsheet so that 3 years later, I can find them easy. Or if I'm in a pinch, I have a bunch of people. I was not collecting that stuff. The world that you move through is full of data. And that data is valuable. And if you are not thinking about how to hold on to for future access all the stuff that you have, even if you don't know what the ROI is, then you're really missing out. Yeah. And so I just started, I started a newsletter, and I started this spreadsheet that I think I just called Good Contacts. And I don't know what I'm going to do with all this stuff. I have to put out a newsletter so people will keep subscribing to it. But what's the point of it? I don't know. The only thing I know is that I have a bunch of people paying attention to me now, and I really should be able to be in touch with them in the long term. So I'm many paces behind, because I wasn't doing that until recently. And now I'm starting to be a lot more mindful of the things that I have access to and how to hold on to them for future use.
Yeah, when I was getting my master's degree, they were my one professor, he always said, allocate your resources, know what your resources are, allocate your resources. And he just pumped that into my head. And, we get access to tremendous amounts of resources every single day.
Yeah.
We have Sales Navigator on LinkedIn. We have, DMs and PMs and live streams and podcasts that we have so much, it gets down to the point where we now need to sift through it and what's most important versus what's not important. And so, one of the biggest mistakes I think I made, it was a lesson learned. And like you, Jason, I don't regret any of the mistakes I made. But the one thing, as I began to scale this business into a much larger business, was not having my processes and systems in place. Mm-hmm. And that really bit me in the ass in the long run when I started charging higher rates, but not perfecting my processes and systems and having them airtight. And having clients that were upset. The last thing that I ever wanted to see was a client that was so happy to finally find someone like me to help them design and build their brand and strategize it all out, and then have them be left high and dry because of a poor process and a poor fulfillment plan. So going through a war story a couple years ago where I had a client and he was very disgruntled and he took it public and it was bad and it was very scary at the same time. That was the day that everything changed. I promised my wife, I promised myself, I promised my community, and I promised my clients that it would never happen again. And I invested a tremendous amount of time, money, and energy into air sealing my process. And now we have a great process and system. It's like coming into the Ritz-Carlton now. Yeah. And, had I not gone through that, I don't think I would be doing the business that I'm doing today. So always a lesson learned. So I don't know if I would fix my mistakes, quite frankly, like you, Jay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, you can't do something just because somebody told you to do it. You have to learn along the way. And learning is the result of mistakes.
Right. Absolutely. Well, here's the thing. I want to give you 10 seconds so you can plug your Cameo.
Oh my God. That's the first time anyone's ever asked me to plug my Cameo.
I'm teasing. If you don't know about Cameo.com, go check it out. It's a pretty cool website. And Jason Feifer is featured on that website.
It's a platform where you can hire celebrities as well as very, low level non-celebrities like me to create personalized videos for you. It's great. You can get Snoop Dogg or Jason Feifer. Take your pick.
Anywhere you want to send my listeners to check out whatever you got going on, let us know right now.
Yeah, well, listen, you started off with the podcast, so I'm gonna, and we're in a podcast medium right now, so I'm gonna tell people to do that. So listen, so there's Problem Solvers. It's a weekly show that I create with Entrepreneur, and each episode is about an entrepreneur solving unexpected problems in their business. And then Pessimist Archive is a history show about why people resist new things. Each episode, we look at the moment that something new was introduced, something that today we take for granted, like coffee, chess, the bicycle, the novel, the elevator, and we try to understand why it freaked everybody out, why people resisted it, and how everyone got over it.
It's absolutely, it's phenomenal. I read the one about millennials. I mean, I listened to the one about millennials.
Oh, yeah.
That was great. You had the two girls. You played the little game. I'm like, Jason's giving me juice for my show, man.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. That's good. Yeah, that's really great. And by the way, you know what? Can I just say, so, I mean, that doesn't mean anything to anybody who hasn't listened to the show, the girls playing the game, but so what that was, so there was an episode called Kids These Days where I track back the history of people criticizing the younger generation. And then I played a little game with these two women from another podcast. And that was the first time that I'd ever done anything like that. Because it's a produced show. So I'm the narrator. I bring in audio, but I have never run like a segment where I'm just talking to someone. And it felt like a real risk. And like I was breaking format and I didn't know how it was going to go and people were going to like it. But now when people mention that episode to me, that's the first thing that they mention. They're like the thing with the girls. And so it's like, oh, that's great. That is why you take risks. That's why you change things up. Like throw something in, see how people react. If they love it, you can do more of it. If they don't, it's fine. You just move on. But that's been very gratifying to me. And I should say that, I also, like that segment, we taped it. It was 20 minutes long. I cut it to 9 minutes. I was like, I think this is good. I had a couple of people listen to it. They were like, I think it drags. I cut it to 6 minutes, and then that's what ended up in there. So, like take risks, spend a lot of time, make it the absolute best that it can. And sometimes you'll do something that people will remember far longer than you ever anticipated.
That's it. Jason, thank you so much for coming on the show, dude. Really appreciate it. I had a lot of fun.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it so much.
You got it. There you have it, guys. Another episode in the books. Real quick, if you haven't hit subscribe yet, hit the subscribe button right now. If you have a second, write a quick little written review. If you're new to the show, welcome. Go check out some more episodes. If you haven't checked out the show notes yet, check out the Brand Yourself course. It's a brand new course that I've developed. It took me 6-7 months to put this together, but it's 13 years of my experience wrapped up into about 4 hours of phenomenal content that will help you build a profitable and reputable brand for yourself. Go check that out in the show notes right now. Have an amazing day, guys, and I will catch you on the next episode. Take care.
You've been listening to the Brand Doctor Podcast with Henry Kaminski Jr. To get your appointment with the doctor, visit Brand Audit at www.uniquedesigns.net.